Trump campaign is now reaching voters online.
You are seeing the President of the United States. Look at the lines.
You joined our movement.
A lot of President Trump supporters here.
Greatest movement in the history of our country. I'm fighting for you, and I love doing it with everything that I have. And I will never, ever stop. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will make America great again.
Welcome to Team Trump Online.
Good evening and welcome to Faith in America, Catholics for Trump. My name is Mercedes Schlapp and I'm Senior Advisor for the Trump-Pence campaign. And joining me tonight are great patriots, great Catholic voices. Starting over to my left is Matt Schlapp, my great husband, who I've been quarantined with for I don't even know. Also joining us, Justin Clark, political advisor and senior counsel for the Trump campaign. Thank you, Justin, for joining us. How have you been?
Good. How are you guys doing?
You know, we're hanging in there, but I do notice you have something that I think belongs to me.
It did belong to you. This is an icon of St. Michael, the Archangel, that I liberated from your office.
Wait. It mysteriously disappeared from my office in the West Wing one day when I showed up and the icon was gone.
I believe the angel that took it left a note saying that it was in better hands. And in all seriousness, Mercy, I think I needed it more than you did when we were working at the White House together.
You know what? We both needed it, but thank God we had St. Michael standing, watching over us at all times during that time.
That's right.
I still want it back, okay? We're also joining us, Kristan Hawkins, Catholics for Trump and Pro-Life Voices for America. How have you been, Kristan, with the quarantine and the 4 kids?
We've been hanging in there, keeping very busy with homeschool and everything that we're doing with the pro-life generation. So everyone's in a good mood. This weekend is Quarantine-a-ween. We've done half Halloween, so that's our big party for this weekend. We're making up holidays here.
I like it. I like it. That's wonderful. And then we have, of course, Mary Matalin, our co-chair for Catholics for Trump. Mary, thank you again for joining us.
Kristan, I'll trade you one husband for 4 kids. I guarantee you it's a better deal for me.
Hey, Kristan, give me a call. I want to help you negotiate.
Well, apparently we've got Justin teaching the kids Latin. Kristan's teaching the kids Latin as well. Schlapp, what have you been teaching the kids?
Well, they know how to make me a martini, which I think is good.
That's very good.
Very good.
Two dead languages versus a martini. I mean, that's pretty practical skill set.
Teaching Latin makes me want to drink a martini. So.
Right. Well, it's either half full or half empty. You can teach them about fractions. It kind of works well.
There you go.
But let's get into some serious conversation here. Obviously, we know that the Catholic vote's going to have a crucial role this upcoming election. This is a critical time for Catholics to speak up. Especially this year when we've seen the Democrats shift far left on so many of the issues that we care about. And obviously one of the top issues is that of the pro-life issue, and obviously the extreme position that Joe Biden has taken on abortion. But what's interesting is looking at the historical context of this. Joe Biden at one point said that Roe went too far. He also voted in favor of the Hyde Amendment as well. But then all of a sudden there was a shift. What do you think the shift has to deal with, Matt Schlapp?
Well, when Joe Biden was first elected, you would have said he was softly pro-life. He certainly talked about how Roe v. Wade in 1973 went too far because, as we know, Roe v. Wade upended every state regulation on abortion in all the states. So it was really quite radical. And he said at the time that it did go too far. And he supported the Hyde Amendment for all of his years in public office. And what the Hyde Amendment intended to do, named after the late, great Catholic Henry Hyde from Illinois, was to say, okay, we have pro-life Americans and pro-choice Americans, but we can all agree on one thing. Why should we use someone's taxpayer money who's pro-life to pay for the abortions for somebody who wants to have a legal abortion? So this was a place where people could agree on. Even that common sense step, Joe Biden threw out the window during his search for this nomination on the Democratic side in the year 2020. And so, what it certainly looks like his ambitions to be president meant that he had to throw aside the Hyde Amendment. He didn't even do that during the 8 years sitting next to Barack Obama. It just shows you how extreme and how radical this Democratic Party, led by the Squad, led by Bernie Sanders, led by Elizabeth Warren, how radical they are on this question of protecting unborn life.
So, Mary, you've worked in politics for a long time. I mean, have you seen this shift in the Democrat Party where they have definitely gone too far to the left to appease this base and appease Planned Parenthood?
One of the beautiful things about being a woman of a certain age is having an historical context. But just let's stop and think of the history since Roe in the context in which we live today. Since Roe, there have been 62 million abortions performed in the United States, 62 million. I heard this morning that globally, COVID has resulted in 1 million deaths, and we've shut down the world. And the blue states and the liberal states are the number one, let's not go back to work. And yet they can justify 62 million abortions. And it is common sense that you should not, or nobody who opposes abortion should have to pay for it. But even more radical is infanticide. How can, I don't even care if you're pro, I have a lot of pro-choice friends. It is absolutely impossible to morally justify infanticide, which is where Joe Biden and the whole Democratic Party is going. And I'll say one more thing about what Matt mentioned. I'm old enough to remember when the late, great Governor Casey of Pennsylvania was on his dying days, actually, came on my TV show to fight against the morning after pill. That was at the same time they kicked him out of the party. They would not let him attend the convention. So it is, for you younger people, the history, and it's a very short history in my long lifetime, actually. The Democratic Party has gone from Roe, safe, fair, and legal, to infanticide and dumping anybody out of their party, no matter how successful they were as a politician or policymaker, has dumped them by the wayside. Justify that politically.
Well, it shows you just how afraid they are of losing, because they are running to the extremes, to the base, trying to recruit as many activists on their side as possible and hoping to get as many dollars as they can by Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion vendor. And I think the extremism actually shows us that we are winning and we're making strides, that they're having to go so hard left and to be so unapologetically pro-abortion, not pro-choice, pro-abortion, pro-infanticide.
Justin, we've seen the president really be a staunch defender of the unborn and really be a very strong voice on our pro-life issues, even speaking at the March for Life. You worked for the president in the White House. You've been there. You've seen him in action. Share with our viewers your sense of why the president is so committed to our pro-life issues.
Well, Mercy, it's a really great question. And, even going back to 2016, I remember people were shocked at how vociferously the president embraced the pro-life message in debates. If people forget, that was a news story that he was talking about being pro-life openly in the debates in 2016. So this is something that he's committed to, that he remains committed to. It's not only a campaign promise, it's something he feels and believes in, and his record reflects that. This is not somebody who's afraid of the abortion issue. I think, we're talking about history and electoral history with respect to Democrats and Republicans. There have been a lot of Republicans over the years that have been afraid to openly talk about being pro-life, and this president is not. So he's committed to the cause. He's committed to talking about it, talking openly about it, and making sure that we are a pro-life country and we embrace those values. And I can tell you, and Mercy, you know this, he believes it. He believes it to his core, and everything he does is going to always defer to life, always err on the side of life. And that's really refreshing to see, and a sea change in Republican politics.
And that you contrast with the fact that the left they've gone so far left, so extreme, where late-term abortion has become the new norm of the Democrat Party. But I want to go ahead and play a clip. This week, obviously, Hillary Clinton decided that she was going to endorse Joe Biden. Surprise, surprise. I'm with her. I'm with him. I mean, they kind of went back and forth there. So let's play a clip now of Joe Biden in this segment, and I want to get your reaction to this.
And finally, we need to ensure that women have access to all health services during this crisis. Abortion is an essential healthcare service. It's being used as a political wedge right now, and it shouldn't be. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the American Medical Association agree that it shouldn't be categorized as a procedure that can be delayed. It can't.
Schlapp, let me start with you. So you're saying abortion is an essential healthcare service?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we all know and science teaches us is abortion is in no ways healthcare. Abortion is in each and every case a human tragedy. And what is amazing to me is juxtaposing what the president is trying to do with a balance on trying to have distancing and making sure that Americans stay safe. And so a lot of things have closed down. But you know, these voices like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, they demand that Planned Parenthood and the abortion mills have to stay open because they're essential. Because like what Mary Matalin just said, any abortion that doesn't occur because of this national emergency, they view as a slight against women. And what will happen because of COVID, because of Chinese corona, as I call it, because of this shutdown, you actually might have the chance for women to reconsider this most serious of decisions in their life. What would be the tragedy if additional women decided, you know what, I think I'm going to go to term with this pregnancy? Why is that a tragedy for them? And to me, it's the saddest thing to hear.
Kristan, I think one point to you is, or one question to you is, we're seeing, and I was talking to a friend of mine who is a pastor, and he said, you know, we're seeing in these live pregnancy centers, first of all, they're having trouble raising money. Secondly, they're actually hearing that there's more abortions being performed right now because of COVID-19. You know, there's uncertainty. People are concerned of what's going on right now. You know, how do we deal with this? How do we respond to this right now, knowing that in the Democrats' mind, abortion is essential to health care, and we're saying, well, how can we keep talking about this message of life?
Well, I mean, there's several things that are going on. I think we've got to be calling our governors and telling them, you know, if they're shutting down other businesses and claiming other businesses are not essential, then certainly an abortion facility should qualify as a non-essential business. It's absolutely ridiculous. Here in my state of Pennsylvania, Planned Parenthood stopped committing all services except for one thing, and that was abortions. And then they had the audacity to send out fundraising emails asking folks to donate that precious PPE, the personal protective equipment that hospitals were trying to find for their own staff who are protecting themselves against coronavirus. They were asking Pennsylvanians to donate this PPE so they can continue to commit abortions. So I think we need to kind of keep talking about what the abortion industry is doing and how they're using the coronavirus, to be honest with you, to kind of do what they've always wanted to do and push things through that maybe wouldn't have been possible before. For example, they've been trying for years to push this concept of webcam abortions. You know, that abortions between a woman and her doctor line, they don't want to do that anymore because it's too expensive in a lot of states to have an abortionist fly in and commit abortions one day a week. They want to be able to commit abortions via webcam and mail her RU486, a chemical abortion pill, which actually is very dangerous. I mean, it actually increases your risk for going to the emergency room and for death as a woman. And so they're trying to use COVID as a reason to push the FDA to reduce the federal regulations on this very dangerous drug that not only always ends the life and the beating heart of a human being, but also can end her life. They're using COVID for that. So we need to continue to talk about that, using our social media channels, talking to folks in our parish, talking to our families, and really using it to expose the radical extreme agenda of the abortion industry.
Let's talk about that. In terms of the late-term abortions, obviously, Justin, you live in Virginia, as do we. In terms of our Governor Northrop, who is closing down our state till June 10th, he was the one that said execute the baby, right? So, I mean, it really is.
On Good Friday, he signed the law.
Right. Oh, and then they end up loosening up the abortion restrictions. Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's very telling that the Democrat Party has shifted so dramatically. You know, what are your thoughts on the fact that the Democrats just have felt that they can go from safe and rare to all of a sudden on demand, late-term abortion, doesn't matter if the baby's 39 weeks or 40 weeks. I mean, it just goes so against what we stand for as Catholics.
It really does, Mercy. It really does. And unfortunately, just looking at their current, what they're talking about, it kind of brings the lie to the whole myth of Roe versus Wade, that this was a safe, rare, and legal opinion. It wasn't. It's something that really protected, people getting the right to having an abortion and being able to claim a right to an abortion all the way up till birth. I mean, unfortunately, what I think we're seeing right now is we're seeing the Democrats telling the truth about what they've thought all along in terms of the abortion industry. And it's refreshing in a sense, because at least they're telling the truth about it, but it just exposes how horrific their policy position is and how horrific Roe is and has been for the last, my entire lifetime.
Mary, in studying politics, how can Joe Biden really make his pitch to the Catholic voter?
Well, he can't. He can't in any fundamental way. I want to go back to something that Matt said about what would be the tragedy of fewer abortions performed during this COVID operation. There's one abortion clinic left Planned Parenthood clinic left in Louisiana, and we go there and pray every Saturday. And the women that have, and it's just praying, there's no pressure. The women who have stopped and changed their mind to a woman has come back to us and thanked us, and are so grateful and feel so blessed. And I wonder how many of these Democrats go back and talk to women after they've had an abortion and see how grateful and blessed they feel about having taken their own child's life. The second thing I want to pick up on is what Justin said about President Trump's ferocity and bravery in talking about the life issue and abortion. You and I, I'm older than all y'all, but there was for a very long time, and many people, presidents that we've loved and politicians that we've worked for, were terribly afraid of speaking about this issue. And they'd always send us out, Mercy. They'd send out let the girls talk about abortion. And I'd always say, why? Like, that's the man's issue too. It's everybody's issue. It's a moral issue. So I love this president, whether or not whatever his faith is, he walks the walk, he talks the talk. And what Kristan's saying is so true. Why we're afraid to talk about this issue, or we're less than we used to be. But I would ask the question in a calm way to any Democrat, can you just explain to me how safe, legal, and rare became a baby is born, made comfortable, and then we discuss with the mother, as Governor Northam said, discuss with the mother, then taking that baby's life. I can't even restate what Northam said. And I want to know if these Democrats have ever been, somebody should ask at a debate, have you ever gone back 10 years after the fact, or 5 years, or 10 months, and said, are you feeling grateful and blessed for the opportunity to have rid yourself of a human being? That is the completely opposite of what happens when you're praying at these clinics and abortions are avoided. It doesn't sound like that's a political way to discuss it, but absence of fear of discussing it is in a calm way is really, really critical. And we have to do this when we have a president who is so unafraid and is so vocal about the dignity of every single life.
No, and there is a good point to make here, because the Democrats always use that line, and I'm sorry, Justin and Matt, that you all are outnumbered, that, women, it's a women's issue. And I'm saying there are so many women out there, Catholic women, Christian women, that are pro-life, and so many young people who are pro-life and speak out and say, wait a second, Democrat crazy party, you don't speak for me. And I know, Kristan, you go out on college campuses all the time. I mean, you get to meet these individuals. What do you get when you're speaking to the pro-life women out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting on college campuses, and I have a lot of these lectures and debates on campuses, and I get my fair share of protests. But it's really interesting when the crowd comes and they hear the speech and I talk about abortion, and even those who don't want to call themselves pro-life. They struggle with the term pro-life, but they don't want to call themselves pro-abortion. You want to know what makes them more mad than anything else? When I call them pro-abortion, they have to defend their abortion beliefs. No one is comfortable with abortion on college campuses. They all recognize that abortion is a tragedy, that there's something wrong with it, that it's sad. And so that's really what our job really needs to be, is ask those questions. What Mary was saying, of in a calm, rational way, kind of probing. Why, Vice President Biden, is it a tragedy to make a woman wait to have an abortion? Tell me why. What happens in the 1 to 2 months that she might have to wait between maybe a COVID quarantine when the abortion facilities shut down her state to when it'll be reopened? What makes the difference? And the reason is they don't want to answer that question, right? It's because, oh no, the baby might be 5 months old, and that baby might be able to survive outside of the womb. And I've seen my grandchild via ultrasound that way. So I think it's about kind of having these conversations, and that's really when we change a lot of minds. We also see a lot of women who'll come in and they'll be wearing their Planned Parenthood shirts, they'll be protesting me, holding their signs, and I'll start talking about what it is that the pro-life movement and that Catholics and people of faith across America do every single day, about our 3,000 pregnancy help centers, about our adoption homes, our maternity homes, and how we're the ones at Students for Life. We have an effort called Pregnant on Campus that's providing scholarships and support and challenging schools when they're violating Title IX laws, when young women are told you can't come back to class with that baby, or you're going to lose your scholarship if you become a mother. We're the ones that are standing up for her right to choose to be a mother and continue her education and continue and go forward to her career. And that changes all of their minds when they realize we're the ones fighting for their real rights.
Well, stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. Tonight, it's Faith in America, Catholics for Trump. We'll be right back.
In 2016, we built an unbeatable operation that changed history. Now, we unveil our next breakthrough. The exclusive Trump 2020 app. This isn't just an app. This is your source for real news, not fake news, straight from the campaign and the president himself. This is your direct line to give input on key campaign issues, your portal to register voters, host MAGA meetups, your scheduler, your application on becoming a Trump team leader.
Join millions and get a front row seat to our virtual events. Watch Team Trump every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Earn points, get rewarded, get the presidential photo. Oh, and did we mention this is your personal shopper too? So just to repeat, this isn't just an app. This is your tool to keep America great. Join the army for Trump and download the app today.
This is Matt Schlapp, and welcome back to Catholics for Trump. Some interesting things are happening in the shutdown due to Chinese corona. Justin Clark, Mercy mentioned that you worked at the White House, and now you're a really critical advisor at the campaign. By the way, I pray for you a lot because I really want you to be successful. Okay,
I hope
Justin?
you pray for me too.
Yeah, everyone. But in the midst of some kind of crazy decisions from mayors and governors, about what does get shut down and what is allowed to stay open. We've covered Planned Parenthood, but even in states like Mississippi and other southern states, there's been these kind of arbitrary decisions about shutting down any kind of observance of a religious practice, right? While they're allowing similar things to stay open that are non-religious in nature. And our great Attorney General, Bill Barr, came forward and said, now look, basically what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're going to treat a retail or a restaurant establishment in a certain way, you can't be more harsh on the religious institution or the religious service. You're a lawyer, one of the good ones. What's your reaction to what Attorney General Barr did?
Well, I think he was dead right to do what he did. And just by way of background, the president and the administration have done a great job, respecting the boundaries of federalism, right? We live in a federal republic, and we have 50 different sovereigns within our country, right? And I think he's done a terrific job making sure that we respect the rights of the states and respect the rights of all those there. A lot of the decisions people in the states have made, some of them are head scratching. You can go to your local package store and get some vodka or a bottle of wine, and I'm A-okay with that. But you can't go to mass. There's just disparate treatment of different things, and in some instances it's seemingly targeting religion. So Attorney General Barr this week did come out and gave guidance in a letter to his U.S. attorneys throughout the country, basically saying, watch out for this stuff. Just because we're in the time of pandemic, in a time of crisis, or there's a national emergency declared, doesn't mean our constitutional rights are suspended in any way, and to be on the lookout for violations of people's constitutional rights. And I think it was important to send that message to our nation's governors, and more importantly, our citizens, that, hey, we're all sacrificing here, and we're all, really giving up a lot, and some in horrible ways, losing jobs, losing careers.
As a West Wing insider, Mercy, you were a West Wing insider as well. What I find fascinating was with people like Bill Barr, the Attorney General, who's a man of faith, of Catholic faith, Pat Cipollone, who's the president's White House counsel, another outstanding lawyer, individual, a man of strong faith, Catholic faith. What I like about with this president, the types of people he's put around him, is, like you said earlier, I think Marius had said it and you said it, he simply is doing what he said he would do. He's walking the walk. And I think Mary would know from her past experiences with presidents, oftentimes, even if a president feels a certain way on a tough cultural issue, a lot of the senior advisors all roll their eyes at that policy. Oh my gosh, I guess he has to do this. But President Trump has put people around him that are animating his vision for pro-life policies, like don't torture the little sisters of the poor anymore, and don't make them pay for birth control, and crazy Obama Biden ideas like that. Mary, you have to look at this and say it's very refreshing.
It's not just refreshing, it's fundamental. After life is liberty. Our Constitution, our founding, everything is based on the law of God or Judeo-Christian values, and it applies to atheists. It applies to everybody, and using the metric of Mercy's historical metric. Every time there's an authoritarian or totalitarian eruption in a country, what's the first thing they do? They close down the churches. And they've not, since the inception of Christianity, not through torture, not through the Inquisitions. John Paul, beloved John Paul II in the Polish churches, none of these churches have ever been able to be eradicated, but that is what the totalitarians go for first. And I love Bill Barr's, he's not making it a religious issue. He's making it an issue for atheists. He's making it an issue for everybody. Life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, which for many people of faith, this has been a very unhappy time to not be able to hold mass. Of course, in Louisiana, we had drive-by daiquiris, so we have drive-by masses too. My priest is running around in a truck with a megaphone doing mass. So you cannot stop the church. You cannot stop people of faith. And thank thank Bill Barr, not only for that and understanding our founding and the critical nature of the values in our founding and our Constitution. He is actually this week making great strides in cleaning up what has been the most horrific displays of justice known to this in the history of this country. And we're not going to get into that, but
it is the ridiculous
Hail narrative, General Flynn.
All this stuff. But the other thing I just want to say to put a kind of conclude that thought is it's not just Bill Barr, it's not just Pat Cipollone taking leadership from pro-life leadership from the president. It's also Alex Azar at HHS, really one of the most pro-life secretaries of HHS we've ever had. His deputy, Eric Hargan, another man of strong Catholic faith. So like the president has surrounded himself with people that understand the policy and they're making it happen. And it's just wonderful to watch.
Yeah, and I think Kristan, I think I'd like to get your thoughts because obviously in this particular case, it was a Mississippi pastor who the individuals got fined, those who were part of the congregation, about $500 per person, which is outrageous. So it was really, I think, courageous of Bill Barr to speak up. And, you know, we've seen some of these pastors get arrested as well. So, I mean, how far are these governments, these state and local governments going? Are they going too far?
I absolutely think they're going too far when you start finding folks for going to church on Easter or for pastors for holding services. I do believe that we should be protecting the most vulnerable Americans. I have 2 children with cystic fibrosis, so we've been quarantining before it was cool to quarantine. And this is kind of how we live our life normally. And so I certainly understand how we need to protect the most vulnerable amongst us. And to be honest with you, it's been very interesting to see the cognitive dissonance in a lot of these Democrat governors. You know, Gavin Newsom saying, that's it, I'm shutting down all the beaches, everything, because too many of you going to the beaches. And then he turns around and signs a horrific law that's going to mandate abortions on every college campuses, and saying one breath that you support the most vulnerable, but then on the other hand, support abortion. Exactly what we saw in New York State, where Governor Cuomo lit up One World Trade Center pink last year after he signed into the Reproductive Health Act, which allows abortions up until the moment of birth, which literally took away the criminal penalties for killing a pregnant woman. You can now only be charged in the state of New York with 1 murder, not 2, had you previously. And he lit up One World Trade Center to celebrate that. And then he's on TV every day lecturing New Yorkers about how they're not protecting those vulnerable. So I think there's always a balance. But I think what Bill Barr did, it's amazing to see what President Trump, how he's done what he said he was going to do. And the people he's put into place throughout the entire administration, personnel is policy, and President Trump nailed it when he appointed his cabinet.
Your Cuomo comments, I mean, it's huge hypocrisy, and it's also Joe Biden's party. I mean, it's very much the direction that he's going. We're going to need to take a quick break. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
We turn now to that $350 billion fund to help small businesses and its workers get through the shutdown.
It will be up to Congress to restock it.
But Democrats blocking that move this morning.
They asked for $250 billion in 48 hours. I said, well, I don't think so. They objected, and I congratulate the Senate Democrats.
Speaker Pelosi, what are you going to share with us from your home?
Chocolate candy.
Thousands have been forced to wait for hours at food banks all across the country.
This is
oh my
chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here. We just got it restocked with the ice cream.
You don't want to eat up everything all at one time.
I can't do it much longer. I'm trying so hard.
We're, shall we say, enjoying.
Having to admit that, yeah, we're starving, and
I like it better than anything else.
Taping this segment, there are 22 million people out of work.
This specific program is about stopping job losses today.
This is hurting people bad.
Other people in our family look for some other flavors, but
right now it's survival move. You don't know where that next something else is going to come from.
I don't know what I would have done if ice cream were not invented. I just wonder.
Welcome back to Faith in America, Catholics for Trump. Mary, last weekend we saw Cardinal Dolan, someone who's very loved and respected in the church, welcome President Trump to his live stream mass. And during that time, and after the broadcast, he praised the president. He said, "The president has seemed particularly sensitive to the religious community. I'm in admiration of his leadership." What's your reaction to this high praise coming from Cardinal Dolan?
I love Cardinal Dolan. He was the rector at the North American College where my priest did his seminary work. And he was also my seatmate at the Al Smith dinner when my husband and I spoke there. He is funny. He is a funny man. He's a wonderful man. And talk about courageous. It's like you have cooties if you say anything nice about Trump. And he lives in New York. It is magnificent and truthful and completely Dolan-esque for him to have commended this president. And can I make a side point on leadership? We were in the White House on 9/11. The execution of this administration in dealing with this global threat, because even 9/11 wasn't a global threat, has been astounding. And it was not just courageous, it was critical for Cardinal Dolan to recognize that. I love that man. I love and adore that man. And don't miss him on the Catholic channel. He's on once a week. He's hilarious too.
You know, I do think it's incredibly helpful during this time as we've all turned even more so to prayer and to our faith. And really, in our parish, for example, we've had one of our priests actually with COVID.
Yeah.
So it's something that has impacted our community so personally, but they're so brave in terms of them trying to shepherd us during this very difficult time and provide the spiritual support we need. Kristan, let's go to you. I know that you've had to adapt to this new virtual environment in spreading your message of what you do in your work. Share with us a little bit of how you've had to adapt to these changes in today's difficult times.
Sure. Well, we just moved from campuses to computers. And so we've been able to do everything we were doing on campuses digitally. We trained 2,200 young people last month. We got 100 new Students for Life group leads. It's actually fascinating. Students have had a little bit more time. So they said, what more can I do? We had students last week who banded together and said, let's start raising money for these pregnancy centers. And they set up 20 virtual baby showers across the country. They've raised over $6,000 already. So, today and this weekend, we had National Pro-Life Sidewalk Chalk Day. We released HistoryMakerToolkit.com this week, and we have all the national pro-life leaders and free online training for any pro-life activists of any age. So we're certainly keeping busy. We continue to have conversations. We just reached, I was told yesterday, 120,000 online conversations. We've got a 31% conversion rate. So we're actually targeting those pro-choice young people and having digital conversations with them, changing their minds on this issue. So it's difficult, but these challenges allow us some new opportunities, and we're going to take advantage of that.
Justin, let me ask you, let's put your political hat on here. We know that, the election's going to come before we know it. Your team's working 24/7, obviously, on so many of these different issues. But now we've got the Catholic vote. I know that people are always like, oh, you got to separate, church and state. The Catholics get very why would we want to get involved in politics? But we got to get involved in politics. What do you see is going to happen with the Catholic vote, and especially in some of these targeted states like Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania?
Well, sure. I mean, everyone always talks about the Catholic vote as being, a monolith, and it's not. It's rather diverse. We've got about, if you take the Pew Research numbers, about 20% of the population of the country, or 60 million people, are Catholic. It's the largest single denomination of any Christian sect in the country, so it's a big, broad, diverse group. Now, that 20%, if you look at states like, and I'm just going to use my cheat sheet here because I can't remember numbers anymore, Iowa, 25% of the population's Catholic, Pennsylvania, 28%, Michigan, 21%, Wisconsin, 25%. The numbers are disproportionately higher in the Midwest, in those states I just mentioned, than the national average. And you've got a higher percentage of more conservative voters who also are Catholic in those areas. So we have an opportunity to really reach out to folks with the president's message in those places, getting them to register to vote, getting them to go to the polls, come to events, go to rallies. And that's why Catholics for Trump is really important, because we want to be a tool to be able to get people in the door and engage with President Trump where they may not have before. They may not have heard his message. It's always shocking to me, being a political hand, that there are so many people who are engaged in politics and have opinions that aren't registered to vote. And the Catholic community in those areas is no different. So it's going to be critical. It's going to be critical to register your friends and neighbors and families, to talk to people at the fish fry, to talk to people at Donut Sunday after Mass, and get them to register to vote and vote for President Trump.
I love Donut Sunday. It's usually one of my favorite events.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite.
Can I add something to that?
Mary?
It's in Justin's lane. President Trump has done such a magnificent job in minority communities, and I know New Orleans is on, but 30% of African Americans are Catholic there, and women, African American women, 81% of them are religiosity. That's they're high on religiosity, to go into this polling stuff. We have an opportunity to bring these two messages together: what the president has done in those communities, and how much of that is founded on the values that are in the Constitution that are being defended by this president.
That's a great point. And I think also, obviously, the great work he's done on criminal justice reform, which has its roots in our Christian faith of believing in second chances and redemption, because if it wasn't for redemption, we'd all be in a sorry spot. Do you want me to lead us in prayer?
Please do. And
Okay.
what do we know from May 1st?
Well, we've had a great conversation, and we know that on May 1st was a special day in a lot of ways. First of all, it's my little baby sister's birthday, my sister Chrissy, but even more importantly, both the church in Canada and the United States rededicated itself to the protection of our Blessed Mother. And we often think about, Mercy and I, Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is the feast day that I proposed to you on, and she's the protectress of of the Americas. And I always feel like it's a very special thing to ask Mary to help America, to pray for America, and to pray for our president. So let's do that now. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Mary, we ask you to intercede with your Son, our Savior, to keep America in your bosom, to keep all of the important issues that America is leading on, to give us strength, and to know what our purpose is to be, to further God's kingdom. And these things we pray in your name. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And I want to thank all of our special guests today who joined us to really have this heartfelt conversation, this important conversation on how we can get the Catholic vote out. That's going to be critical. We want you to get involved in our movement. We want you to get involved in the campaign. And let me tell you something, President Trump is standing up for people of faith every single day, him and his administration. It's what he's committed to. And if Joe Biden were to become president, which is not going to happen, he would lead us in a wrong path. And we have to be we need to know that this is the most critical election. And we need to stop Joe Biden from getting into the White House. First of all, because I don't think he's going to remember anything, number one. And number two, he definitely will not be a fighter for us, for our church, and for those people of faith who just want to worship freely and also protect the unborn. So stay in touch with us. That's the most important thing. We have Team Trump online every night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We love having you join us. We've had a tremendous success with over 1 million unique viewers a night. And also you can text at 88022. You can text Trump at 88022. We also have a new app that we've unveiled. So you can download that at the, let me make sure I get this correct. It's at the Apple and Android. That shows you that I can't be that technologically savvy. But join us. If you want to volunteer, make calls from your couch, go to armyfortrump.com. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you. God bless President Trump, and God bless America.